Yay, we are live. I
Woo!
know it'll take a little bit for everyone to get here, so we'll watch in the comments. Amici's here. Welcome.
Amazing.
What are you like? What's your favorite beverage to drink in the morning, Melissa?
Oh, I'll give you just one guess, Leslie. What do you think it might be?
Coffee.
That would be coffee in the
And
biggest mug
I
possible.
I love that. Do like a little bit of both. I do water in my little favorite mug here, Show Your Heart, and I
Oh,
have coffee as well.
it is very important to drink water also, but caffeine is basically I am powered by caffeine 100%.
Me too. It's definitely the start. So as usual, there's always a delay in comments, and I'm so glad Amici's here. And you're calling in from the UK. I love that.
That's
I met
amazing.
Amici on Twitter, and now called X. Oh, and Stephen Eng is here too.
Hi,
So
Stephen.
I love it that Amici and I have now connected on LinkedIn as well.
That's
Stephen,
amazing.
thank you for coming.
Oh, here
Now all the
comes
comments are
everyone.
coming through. Thank you, StreamYard and LinkedIn. So, Scott, I have these delicious cinnamon rolls. They were eaten already. Sorry.
Leslie, that's not nice.
And I love the comment. Let me pull it up from Barry. Coffee makes the world go round
It sure
for
does.
sure. Yay. Everyone's coming. Welcome, welcome. So we want to first let everyone have a chance to be here and then we'll introduce ourselves too.
Ah,
And I see that
maybe.
Dina is
All right.
here and she's showing up as a LinkedIn user, but I know it's you, so welcome. Oh, thank you everyone for being here. They're all piling in now. I love it.
Oh, it's so nice to see everyone. Thank you guys so much for sharing your morning or your evening with us.
Thank you. So it seems like as everyone comes in, we'll introduce ourselves and then we'll really get started. And then we have questions for all of you. So, first, for those who don't know, and let me go back, I'm trying to do the tech at the same time.
I was smart. I let you handle that.
So, I'm Leslie Neidick. Some know me as the conflict strategist. Obviously, I help people get unstuck from conflict. And I really say love strongly, sharing my strategies on LinkedIn, on YouTube, through my blog, because it's all about sharing what I know. Of course, I also do design customized training. I do some coaching, and soon I'm going to launch something called the Conflict Tune Up. So stay tuned for that.
I'm so excited for that, Leslie. I can't wait to see it. Um,
Thank
so I'm
you.
I'm Melissa Cohen. So my fun little tagline is the mindful fashionista, because I work in the fashion industry. But I also like to be very mindful as to where are my clothes made? Who made them? What are they made from? And most important to me is what happens to them at the end of their life. Can they be recycled? Can they be upcycled? Do they still have life within them after the original user is done wearing them? So that's kind of where that all comes from. And then also, I just love LinkedIn. If you know me, you know that LinkedIn is my platform of choice. It is the only social media platform that I'm active on. And I've really been enjoying doing a little LinkedIn branding and presence coaching. That's really been fun for me. And I'm really excited to kick off this series with Leslie.
Me too. So it really gets to the point of let's ask a question. So many of you might not know, but Melissa and I met on LinkedIn, literally in the comments on one of her posts. And it was just the start of a conversation. Eventually, we figured out that we live in the same city and we've We've met in person a few times. So it's just grown from there. And I'm sure you all have those kind of stories. So what we want to know is, where do you meet people on LinkedIn? And we'd love to see it in the comments. And I'll start highlighting a few of them. But excuse me one second. But Melissa, who has definitely met a lot of people on LinkedIn in person and everywhere else, what's your like feelings about where you meet the most people, or how, and how that all happens?
Yeah, I think definitely in the comments, right? And that's a strategy that I really work with people on. Is the comments is magic. Um, you can post every single day and you can post great content every single day, but if you don't then engage with people either on your own post or on their posts, it doesn't have the same impact. And comments are really where conversations can happen. And to your point, Leslie, you and I met in the comments, right? Which is crazy because I feel like we've been friends forever, but you're right. We met in the comments on a post and we started chatting. And then, when you do kind of connect with someone in the comments section on people's posts, you can then take that conversation offline. You can do a virtual coffee chat. You can do an in-person meetup if you're geographically in the same area, or if you happen to, be in the city that that person is in for a trip. And I've had loads of those. We're lucky we live in New York City, so people will often come here for different reasons. And it's always so much fun to meet people in real life that you've only seen online before.
Exactly. You really captured it all. And it is what you make of it. So, but the magic in those comments where it just starts and engages and then moves to other things. I also have found live streams, what goes on in the comments, it can be a little, I call it like frenetic at times, with depending on how many people are in the particular live. But it's another great start. And then to reach out, or then to go look for the person's post. I find that the greatest, like, hello, when someone goes to look for your post, to, intentionally make a comment. And it's just like, hi, like, what you have to say matters, is pretty much what it says.
I mean, that's a great point, and that's a great idea, right? So we have a lot of comments, which is amazing. And I would encourage everyone in the comments, if you are making a comment on this live stream, or even if you're not, take a look at who's commenting and who is interesting to you. Who would you like to connect with? And reach out and say, hey, I saw your comment on, Leslie and Melissa's live stream. I'd love to connect. I think that anybody who's here and engaging, that's what they're looking for, right? LinkedIn is the absolute best place to build community and to meet people who have similar interests, similar goals, or maybe really different interests that you can learn from each other.
Exactly. And I do find, and I know there are people out there who agree, that the initial start is rarely in the messaging. It works as the follow-up and the next step and the next step. I'm not saying people don't meet in the messaging, particularly when people write a meaningful comment when they're sending a connection request. That can really have an impact. But sometimes that's like a little mini start, but it's not enough to really get it going. I think it's that people want to be heard. If they're posting, when you send a note, it doesn't have to be a comment. When you send that direct message or a comment, it really is saying, like, I heard you. And that's, in the end, like, what we all want, like, to be seen and heard in a conversation. So
100%.
it's not something I don't know about you, Melissa, but when I do actually remember reading a post about this that you felt somewhat similar. When I first posted, it became this horrible internal conversation in my head of, do I do it? Oh my God. Oh, I hit it's on. What should I do? Should I delete it? Because if no one sees it or responds to me, who am I talking to? And it's just a weird, I didn't grow up with having this kind of platform. So, but once I got used to it, it was much easier.
100%. I actually did post about it not that long ago. That I've had a LinkedIn account since 2008, and I didn't post until 2020. And when I made that first post, I thought I was going to throw up. I had the same thing, this internal battle in my mind. Why am I doing this? What if everybody hates it? What if nobody reacts to it? It was during the pandemic. And I was searching for two things, right? One, I had lost my job in the pandemic, and I knew that I had to start really leveraging the community and the network that's here. But two, I was living in New York City in the heart of COVID, and I was craving any sort of human interaction, because I really missed people. It was a very isolating time. And I remember that first post. It was a really bad post. It was a repost of an article from the CDFA, which is the Council of the Fashion Designers of America. But I remember, like, I want to say something like 18 reactions, and one kind soul actually reposted my horrible post. And that's kind of how it all started, right? I said, okay, I didn't die. Nobody sent me, nasty messages saying you're dumb. And it kind of just started from there. So, absolutely, if anybody is terrified of taking that first step, just go
Do
for
it.
it. Go for it.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why commenting can be easier, right? It's
Yes.
not as scary. You're still visible, but it's not as in your face. And I always tell people, if you're really too nervous to make that first post, start commenting.
Yes. Because they are mini posts. And in fact, I've taken I'll write a comment and I go, oh wait, that could be a post too. And I save it. They really are little mini posts and I love it.
Yeah, if you ever noticed, a lot of times when you make a comment, LinkedIn will give you that
Yes.
prompt. Hey, turn your comment into a post. Now, sometimes it's ridiculous because it's not a comment, that would be a post. But a lot of times it really can be a starting point for your own post, your own content.
So, oh, there it is. So we want to get to the real conversation about our careers and where we've gone. And this is really prompted by a recent post by Melissa, like talking about all of our jobs that taught us a lesson, and many of them from our long ago past. And in fact, that's why there's one particular job that I will talk about because I mentioned it in reply to your post, and you were like, "Well, I got to hear about that one."
Yes.
So if you want, I'll start, and then definitely want to hear more about your jobs. So I wrote, I was a bus driver, and I was. Uh, it was for a day camp, and the most important skill I first had to learn is that I didn't realize this. All buses, or at least for this camp, were manual transmission. I was all of 19 years old. I never even sat in a car that had manual transmission. So terrified, shy, didn't know, like, I had to raise my hand and go, I don't know how to do this. And luckily, they had some great training for me. So that was like my first lesson of how to get past being so uncomfortable and scared and how to speak up and that it was okay to say, you know what, I don't really know how to do this. And everyone like comes and helps you. And I didn't realize that it was okay to say that. The other part of the job that really taught me something was in the afternoons, I was part of the team. I was a counselor as well. And then I would break off from my group, and my assignment was to get all the buses set up for departure. So, literally, all the buses that were facing in one direction, we had to turn them around so that they could get out of the camp. And I don't know why I was selected to move the biggest buses, the one like the long school buses. No one told me that you can't see. at all behind you. You have to work with these guides to back you up, the people, and completely trust them because I'm just moving this bus and I'm completely blind with where I'm going. And it just taught me about how to work with, there were always 2 or 3 people helping me, and team, and really putting 1,000% of your trust in your team. So, at the time, did I know I was learning these great lessons? No. But later on, reflecting on it, I'm like, wow, you really do learn something at every job, no matter what it is. And even when it seems so unrelated to what you're going to do next.
So first of all, I give you all the credit in the world because I think you know this about me, Leslie, and many people might if you read my post, but driving and I do not get along. I do have a driver's license and I used to drive a great deal. And as soon as I moved into the city, I said, nope, not ever driving again. So I kudos to you because that would have probably been a non-starter for me. Um, so I did make a post recently about jobs that I had early on in my career. And most of those were customer facing, right? I worked in retail, in a clothing store. I was a waitress. So one job that I didn't talk about, but that is similar, is when I was in college, I joined what was called the Student Cooperative, and it was running businesses on the campus. And I worked my way up from being a member to running one of the businesses that was on campus. Luckily, it was in my dorm, so I didn't have to go too far. But I was the manager of basically what was an ice cream parlor and a coffee shop. And the very funny part of that is that until I went on a study abroad program to Italy between my junior and senior years, I actually hated the smell of coffee. Now, I know that's really hard to believe, but so part of my job was to make the coffee, and I really didn't like the smell of it, which is hilarious to me now. But that job taught me so much, right? I was responsible for opening the store, for closing the store, for hiring staff, for making sure that we were always stocked. We had a wide variety of products. We had ice cream, we had bagels, we had spreads and salads like, tuna salad, egg salad, chicken salad. We had, if anybody remembers back in the day, the Otis Spunkmeyer cookies that got cooked in their own special ovens, right? And you had to order the
Yes.
dough. So I had to make sure that all of these things were in stock all the time. I was dealing obviously with cash on a regular basis because I'm old and people weren't paying for things with credit cards back in the day, especially not, small food items. Um, it really taught me a lot, right? And I was young. I was in college. I was, 19, 20, 21. It was a lot of responsibility, but it also really taught me how to deal with people, right? People will have complaints, people will be upset about things, you're out of stock on something, they don't like the way something tastes, they don't think that something was what it was supposed to be. And it's really managing, well, you'll appreciate what I'm about to say, managing those conflicts, right? Providing good customer service, working things out, making sure that everybody's happy, supporting your employees, when they might be having these conversations with customers. It was just a huge learning experience for me. And I really think it shaped a lot of the way that I deal with people now.
Yeah. It's so impactful. And I have to go back to answer Anne's question. I did not. Luckily, they did test me before there were children in the bus. Um, yeah, the moms and dads who were delivering their children to me at the door would not have been happy if I was struggling with that, like the stick and the clutch. It took a lot to practice because I didn't have a car at home. So they let me come and practice quite a few times. So thank you for that question. So another job that I had long forgotten about, and yet it probably had much more impact than I definitely knew at that time. So in my senior year of high school, instead of taking whatever I was supposed to take, social studies or government, something in that category. I was invited to this particular job, and I got credit for taking the job. And it was with the police commissioner of the county where I grew up. So initially, my job was I'd arrive, there were all these newspapers on the desk that they gave me, and I had to cut out with a scissor and every article that mentioned the police commissioner or the police in any manner in that locale. And then, of course, tape it on pieces of paper. And then I had to make copies. And it was all these clippings that had to go to all the senior leadership. This was supposed to take me 5 hours because that was my day there from noon to 5, something like that. I was done in like an hour and a half. So at first, this is what happened. I thought I must be doing this wrong. Like I must have not done part of it. And I'm like looking and I'm rechecking and I'm looking at the instructions they gave me from the prior person who had had the job. So like 2 days later, I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, how do you look busy for 3.5 hours? There were no smartphones of any kind or texting at that time. So I had nothing to do. So I like knocked on the door of the police commissioner. I hand delivered his clippings and I said, so I'm done early. What more do you have for me to work on? He just looked at me and go, he's looking at his watch and done early, like you're done in record time. And I didn't want to badmouth all the other people to say, I don't know what they were doing for 5 hours. This is impossible. Because by the second day, I was able to finish in 45 minutes. I mean, there weren't that many newspapers. So he then just looked at me and goes, well, I do have another job. Can you write? Yeah, I think I can write. And he had me writing everything that had to press releases. Like, so he had all this information that came from various sources, but it had to be organized in the press releases that eventually would be used for police blotters or potentially more articles. I loved it. So I would get those clippings done immediately and eventually just work on these press releases. And again, at the time, I didn't know the lesson other than doing the writing, learning everything that's happening in my area. I learned how to write concisely with clarity, which is nothing like the kind of writing I was learning in school, which was much more creative writing. And wow, just when it came time to write emails at work, it just was easy for me. And then I saw why so many people couldn't do it because we were never taught that kind of real business writing. And I just refer to the emphasis on conciseness and clarity. So another job that, like in reflection, I didn't realize what I learned and that it was such a powerful tool that I still use today.
That's just a perfect example of a hidden lesson, but also a perfect example of, being proactive, right? Not just saying, oh, great, I'm done. I'm going to take a nap for the next hour and a half and, see what happens next. No, it was, I'm done. What else can I do? How else can I contribute? What can I do with the time that I have here? And I think that that's a really, really important lesson. And, I would love in the comments to hear what jobs other people had that taught them something. Like I said, most of my jobs early on were very customer facing. And so my first job in high school, I worked in a different clothing store, right? Not Casual Corner, which I was so excited to see so many people were like, I love Casual Corner.
Me too.
I worked in a neighborhood clothing store. And it was hard. It was hard not only because retail is hard and you're on your feet all day and you're working with customers and you're pulling stock out of the back room and you're constantly refreshing the floor and making sure everything's organized. It was also hard because I had a tough boss. My boss there it was a family owned business. And we all know sometimes, not always, but sometimes when it's a family owned business, that can empower people to work in a certain way, right? Because they're not really worried about job security. They're not going to get fired for not treating employees with kindness 24/7. She was tough, and she was hard on us and she had a bit of a temper. And again, it really taught me a lesson, right? How to work with maybe a more difficult personality. She wasn't a bad person. She just really wanted the best results for the store. She wanted to make the most sales. And she wasn't silent about when she thought things weren't done properly or she thought you could have done something better. She was very vocal. So really just kind of learning, how to deal with a difficult boss because we've all had those and we all will have those at some point in our careers.
Absolutely. And that who teaches us this, how to have those difficult conversations in the office? Or like you mentioned, like where I was proactive and asked for more work, that ended up paying me off really well in my first job out of college, where again, I was in this situation where I had a job assignment. I I was more efficient than the person before me. And I was definitely doing a little more busy work than I would have wanted to after graduating from college. But yet I was surrounded. I graduated with a degree in facilities planning and management. So I was very focused on construction, real estate, design, that kind of thing. And I was working in an engineering department. In fact, it was in New York at Columbia University. And I was done. Like each day I finished earlier than the full day. And asked my boss, I go, do you think I could get invited just to sit in on that engineering meeting? Because they were building a couple of new buildings. I said, I just want to absorb like what it takes to run a meeting like that. She's like, absolutely. If they let you in, go ahead. If you're done. And it was that paid off a lot for me, uh, to be able to ask. And I was like, terrified. I was shy, and I learned, and it also taught me how to use my nervousness and stress and like turn it into more excitement because
Exactly.
they're like sisters, those feelings.
Exactly.
So
And you're lucky that you had a good boss, right? You had a boss who was open to giving you that exposure and who wasn't threatened by it. That's one of my biggest pet peeves is managers who are so, hold things so close and don't want to share those opportunities with their team. That's one of my biggest frustrations. So you had the self-starting ability to say, hey, I want to learn more. I want to be exposed to something new. And then you were fortunate that you had a boss who was like, absolutely, let's go for it,
yes.
and that's the biggest gift.
And it was a gift because, like you said, there are people who feel threatened. I had that boss a couple of bosses later, and it made me appreciate that first boss so much, where she was just like, yeah, if you do well, I do well. As a team, we're all going to grow better together versus then I had that boss who everything was a threat, and it closes you in and you can't be creative or innovative because that threatens them. And it's usually because of their own insecurity.
So I'm gonna make you a LinkedIn nugget live, Leslie. If you do well, I do well, right? That is
Mm.
such a nugget, right? If we all just had that mentality and we all just had that mindset, everyone would be so
Oh.
much more successful.
So there's so many comments, including Scott trying to pry to find out exactly when I was in high school. I'm sure everyone can figure it out. It was quite a while ago. Um, and I don't necessarily hide it, but we could move on from that. So there is so many comments. For those that don't know, Melissa and I are going to go in those comments. We just think of them as the start of more conversations. So we're really looking forward to seeing you in the comments. And because it's about that time that we don't want to take up too much of your time. We want to be a half-hour coffee break. We hope you'll join us again. We will announce the date for November, and we want it to be more of this, more of us talking, but more of you talking in the comments so that we can engage with you and continue the conversation. It's just the start of it.
I cannot
Melissa,
believe that
do
we
you?
are at half an hour already. I feel like we've been
I know.
talking for 5 minutes. And yeah, just echoing what you said, Leslie, like, thank you so much to everybody who took time out of your day to join us. I hope that it was as fun for you as it was for me, because I really enjoyed seeing all these comments. Like Leslie said, we're going to go back and engage with them. I loved hearing about some of your early jobs. Michelle, still the fact that you delivered newspapers, I love that so much, because I love newspapers and I kind of mourn their physical demise every day. But really look forward to doing this again, and so excited that you all spent time with us today.
Thank you, everyone.
Enjoy the rest of your day.